Barbecue ribs is definitely one of my favorite dishes, definitely top three. And I hardly see beef ribs in the grocery store. So anytime I see it, I try to grab it and bake some at home, especially if it's not warm outside. So I got some beef ribs and I made some delicious whiskey barbecue sauce and just slathered it all over. Really delicious. So we're gonna make some beef back ribs today. Usually I would wrap my ribs in foil, but I'm going to be testing out something different today. I'm going to be doing it without foil. However, it's going to be low and slow in the oven, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be delicious. Make sure you have lots of time and make sure you're not starving when you do this, because we want to do this in the oven for a long while so the meat can be nice and tender. Let's get into it. So I have some beef back ribs here, guys, and this is a small amount. For some reason, every time I go to the grocery store, they only have a little bit left, but I have to grab it. So you can definitely do much more than I did and use a baking tray because, of course, a baking tray will fit bigger pieces. So I'm just going to season this, guys. I trimmed off any excess fat I didn't want, and then I'm going to rub in some yellow mustard. This is going to help to tenderize it. It's going to help to grab that dry seasoning that you will put on it. So just rub this all over the ribs. Now, one of my tips for making ribs is getting that silver skin removed. It's that thin membrane that's on the underside of the ribs. You can remove it yourself. I've removed it in a video on my channel here before, or you can ask your butcher to remove it, or sometimes it's already removed. It just helps to keep the ribs nice and tender instead of having that chewy membrane on the underside. Of course, it is optional. Some people don't even bother with it. So some people will actually just make the ribs with the silver skin. Sometimes I do, but that's just one of my tips that you can follow if you'd like to. Today I am using yellow mustard, guys, but if you'd like to use honey mustard, you could try that as well. And I'm not measuring, I'm just rubbing some mustard all over. We're not going to overdo it, but we do want to get a good amount of mustard on there. Usually I would make a barbecue rub with cumin and cinnamon and a bunch of good stuff, but I'm keeping it simple today. I'm just going to use some steak seasoning because we are doing beef ribs today, and this steak seasoning, it's really nice. So steak seasoning all over, and the steak seasoning has ground pepper in there, so I won't bother to add any black pepper. Just gonna generously sprinkle this all over and press it into the beef and rub it into the beef. I do like to add some brown sugar sometimes, so we're going in with brown sugar as well. Whatever you do to this side of the ribs, you're gonna flip them and repeat the process. Just get seasoning and sugar all over the ribs. I decided to add some paprika, so I'm sprinkling it all over, and I'm going to do the same thing, flip it over and repeat the process. Once these are seasoned, we just wrap this, put it in the fridge, and ideally let it marinate for, 24 hours. Ideally. Okay? Now, when you're ready to make the ribs, of course, you can use a baking tray. I often use a baking tray. Today, I'm going to try my baking dish, and I'm going to do this differently. I'm not going to use any foil wrap on top. I'm just going to do it low and slow, open like this. I let the ribs sit at room temperature for at least 40 minutes before going in the oven. That way they'll come up to temperature faster. So let it sit out of the fridge. Then you're going to do 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're baking it for 2.5 hours in the oven. Remember, there's no foil wrap, so keep an eye on it and just, sprinkle a little water in the bottom of your baking tray or your baking dish if you feel like it's drying out too much. While those ribs are in the oven, we're going to make this a really easy sauce. So this is barbecue sauce. I'm using Diana and Sweet Baby Ray's. I love those two brands a lot. So I mixed those, and then we're going to put this in the pan, heat things up. It's a very simple sauce, guys. I'm going to be adding some whiskey to this and some maple syrup. And I'm not using pancake syrup. This is real maple syrup, okay? So just pour that in there, and then we're going to add the whiskey. I'm using Crown Royal whiskey. However, you can use Jack Daniels or any other whiskey that you prefer. So heat this over medium heat and then just add your whiskey. Now guys, this is a whiskey barbecue sauce. So of course the whiskey has to be added. However, you might say, Jareen, I don't have any whiskey at home. Then you can use your favorite alcohol, okay? So this is what I use, Crown Royal. You can use your favorite whiskey. So just heat this for about 8 minutes on low heat, of course, and then remove from the stove. Once you take the ribs out of the oven, guys, you're going to be brushing the barbecue sauce all over. We're not just doing the top side, you're flipping it, brushing the sauce all over. Be generous. So get that sauce on there, and then we're going to put it back in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes at the same temperature. Of course, you can use a thermometer, a meat thermometer, to check the internal temperature just to make sure it suits you. At about 150 Fahrenheit, it's safe to eat, but of course you can cook it for longer if you want to. So just slather all the rib sauce all over the ribs. Put this back in the oven, and this is going to be in there for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then you can take them out of the oven. They are gorgeous, guys. If you feel like you want the sauce to stick even more or caramelize even more, you can turn on the broiler for about a minute or so, and you'll be good to go. Now, if you want to know the difference, what I experienced with these ribs versus my other beef ribs video where I used the foil, is that these were very juicy, very flavorful. They were tender. The only difference was the meat didn't completely fall off the bone. So with using the foil wrap to cover the ribs, once you touch it or squeeze it a little, it will literally fall off the bone. But if you want it to have just a little bit of a bite to it, this method is perfect. No wrapping with the foil, or there are some people that don't want to use aluminum foil in their cooking. So this would be good for you. It was really flavorful, guys, and the steak seasoning that I used was awesome. Of course, you can use your favorite barbecue rub or try some steak seasoning like I did. For the perfect side dish, guys, I recommend my cornbread recipe. It is absolutely moist and so delicious. Very easy to make. So check that out. I'll leave a link in the description, and check out the description box as well for the ingredients used in the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.